Do want to take you out to the Middle East right now as we have this image that you've probably seen a few times over the past several months that is over at the Israel-Gaza border. We are following a developing story here as the U.S. and Israel have reached out to officials of three Eastern African governments to talk about using their territories as potential destinations for resettling Palestinians displaced from the Gaza Strip under President Trump's proposal for after the war. Those contacts are with Sudan, Somalia, and a breakaway region of Somalia. Officials from Sudan say they do not want this, and officials in Somalia say they have not heard of any official proposal just yet. Under the plan from President Trump, Gaza's more than 2 million people would be permanently sent elsewhere. He's proposed the U.S. would take ownership of the territory, oversee the lengthy cleanup process, and develop Gaza as a real estate project. Palestinians have rejected the proposal and dismiss Israeli claims that people leaving Gaza would do so voluntarily. Arab nations have expressed opposition as well and offered an alternative reconstruction plan that would leave the Palestinians where they are. U.S. and Israeli officials have now officially confirmed to the Associated Press that they have made contact with Sudan and Somalia. Still, a lot of unknowns and a lot to talk about, so I do want to bring in Hussain Abdul-Hussain, research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Well, first off, I just want to get your overall expertise, your thoughts here about that plan, the contact made with Sudan and Somalia.
Well, I think these countries need the money, and if they're rewarded handsomely, they would agree to such a thing. But the question here is that, will the Gazans want to move to countries like Sudan at the time the Sudanese themselves are fleeing their own country? So, I mean, I think what the world should do right now is offer Gazans the opportunity to leave, or not leave, but at least, open the door for them. They've been sitting in this strip with the Egyptian border closed for some time. So just offer these Palestinians opportunities to travel. Many of them have families all over the planet. Some of them can go, some of them would need some assistance. But if we need, at this point, just, open the door for the willing to leave, and then after that, whoever remains, we can think of how to deal with the remaining population. I think that would be much better than talking to governments who are not reliable in the first place, such as in Sudan or Somalia.
We've talked about President Trump's proposal overall for what happens after the war is over to Gaza. My question for you is, who has the final say about what does happen to Gaza after the war? Is that even clear?
Well, it's not clear. I think each party is claiming that they have authority. First and foremost, of course, Hamas. They think that they will be coming back to rule the Strip. And after Hamas, of course, the corrupt Palestinian Authority, that they think that the world should beat Hamas for them and hand the Strip over to them. We've also seen the what was called the Egyptian plan, or the air plan that was endorsed at the Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo on March 4. I think that plan was a big disappointment. Many of us had high hopes pinned on the plan, and it ended up technically saying nothing. I think the Arab League can act responsible on this. They have enough legitimacy to ask the Palestinians to do what would be the Palestinian best interest. Unfortunately, they haven't done it on March 4.
We've heard from a spokesperson for the Hamas terror group. They released a statement to the Associated Press and said that they will release the last living American hostage after speaking with President Trump and his administration there, as well as the bodies of 4 other hostages who have not survived after being in captivity for more than 500 days. Is that a legitimate situation there, or should we expect something else from that? Could that actually happen?
Well, first of all, I think all of us welcome any release of hostages with Hamas, whether alive or just dead bodies. I think no one would say no to that. However, I have to add that it's not in our interest for Hamas to talk to us as Americans on one side and to the Israelis on the other side. There should be no daylight between the two of us. Hamas shouldn't think that they can be able to peel the United States away from Israel and then deal with the Israeli hostages alone. So I'm just thinking, while it's great to see whoever released, we need to reassert to Hamas that this doesn't mean that Hamas has now bought favor or bought off the United States and made it sit on the side and leave Israel on its own. I think we have to reiterate to Hamas that even after we get these dead bodies and hopefully whoever is still alive, even after that, we will still support Israel until the last hostage, the last Israeli hostage, Hamas releases.
I have to ask, as we take this live look over the Israel-Gaza border here, Hebrew media is reporting that Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer ran a, quote, crazy campaign to prevent the deal between the U.S. and Hamas regarding the release of the American hostages, both living and dead. If true, and this goes to what you were just talking about, would that potentially strain the relationship between the U.S. and Israel?
I hope not. And like I'm saying, it might sound that as if they were trying to obstruct the release. I don't think that was their case. If this really happened, I think that they're thinking, like I was saying, we should stay on the same team. We shouldn't make or draw any differences between the dual nationals, Israeli Americans, and the non-dual nationals, Israelis without any other passport. So this shouldn't be the case. Now, I'm happy if the dual nationals are out, but this shouldn't become the rule for Hamas to benefit from. We should reiterate our position that we're still pushing for everybody to get out.
We heard from Iran's president and supreme leader after President Trump had reached out and pretty much said the talks over a nuclear deal and that really situation in general needed to happen, or there would be U.S. military intervention. So I want to ask kind of your take on this. What would military intervention be like in Iran, and would that happen? Would the U.S. actually send troops onto the ground in Iran?
I don't think military intervention would need any boots on the ground. I think what we're talking about here is reversing the concession that the world gave Iran under President Obama. And this concession, it is you know, the Iranians call it the Iranian right to enriching uranium. This is not a right given to nations. Only a handful of nations in the world do enrich uranium. The Iranians shouldn't have been granted this concession. And I think it's about time that we make clear to the Iranians that they cannot enrich uranium on their territory. They cannot be trusted with doing so, because most of the reports indicate that they're trying to dash towards producing a nuclear bomb. So with this said, I think if there's ever military action, U.S. military action against Iran, I think it'll be pinpointed, and that'll be the goal of the military action, to take out uranium enrichment facilities and make sure that Iran does not enrich any uranium. I don't see any boots on the ground. I don't see any toppling of regimes. I don't see anything happening past that. Iran might want to respond, but I don't see a full-scale war breaking out between us and the Iranians.
All right, Hussain Abdul-Hussain, thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join us here. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Not really. Have a nice weekend, Josh.